What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I got a brand new video for y'all, and today we have a lot to talk about. So first, I have some reaction to a new Pure Poilievre clip. This is actually from a podcast, so we're going to react to it live. And then we also have some other liberal ad. We have some new poll numbers, three different poll numbers that are modeled out on the map by Real Albanian Pat, so we're going to cover that. And then we also have some other news that is related to Mark Carney's prime ministership. And there's some interesting stuff to talk about there. So we're going to get to that in a second. But let's first talk about this. So Pierre Poilievre posted this. He said, unleash our economy, bring home our resource jobs, create powerful paychecks for our people. And then he puts a link for his plan, not his policy platform, by the way. Let's make that clear. Let's watch this. It's about a minute and 20. Let's watch it.
Tell us what you think we should be doing to respond, because retaliatory tariffs, that's short-term stuff. Trump's going to unleash their economy. What do we do?
Unleash ours. We need to grant permission to Canadian businesses to build pipelines, mines, LNG liquefaction facilities that can get our gas on a boat so it can go off to Asia and Europe and break European dependence on Putin, while turning dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people. In other words, bring home our resource jobs. You have to repeal the anti-energy law C-69 that Trudeau, Carney, Liberals put in place.
That every premier of every political stripe has opposed and taken to court and won on.
Absolutely unconstitutional C-69 that Carney supported. We need to massively increase our resource production. Approve pipelines for construction to get our oil to both the Pacific and the Atlantic. We need to compress the time it takes to get a mine approved from 17 years today to it should be about a year to approve a mine. We should have the fastest building permits anywhere in the OECD.
All right, so a lot to unpack there. So first I want to talk about this reporter guy, whoever this dude is, this podcaster. So he said that Trump's going to unleash the economy. I don't know what world this guy's living in, because frankly, that's the most ridiculous thing I've heard. The US stock market has been crashing literally every single day that Trump has been going with these stupidities. So what are you talking about? He's unleashing the economy. Like, this is just so ridiculous. It's such a stupid line of questioning. But then we went to Pierre Poilievre and he said, oh, we're going to unleash ours. Then he talks about liquefaction facilities. He talks about LNG. He talks about exporting to Asia and Europe. And that's all fine and dandy. Then he talks about mines as well. He's like, it takes 17 years to get approved. I hope he realizes mining is not nearly the business it was, 100 years ago. So it's not that big of a deal that it takes a bit longer. And by the way, there's many other things to consider when you talk about mining. I'm not saying that it should take that long, by the way. I think it should be a year. I'm not saying that it should be long. I actually do agree with him that it should be shorter. However, the way he sort of presented it was as if mining is like a brand new up and coming market. We should not be focused on mining and liquefaction only. We should be focused on AI. We should be focused on technology. That's ultimately what's going to matter for our country. That's what's going to matter for the world. Like, we could only, I'm not against the idea of diversifying and finding new markets for natural resources. I'm totally for that. However, he has not mentioned a single thing about AI. He hasn't mentioned a single thing about technology, not a single thing about cybersecurity. So what are we doing? Like, why are we thinking 50 years back? Let's think 50 years forward. So that's one thing. And again, he gave zero specifics as to how he would do it. He just said, we're going to do it. Zero specifics. So that's, again, problematic to say the least. That's very problematic, Pierre, because the fact of the matter is Canadians want answers now. And by the way, the idea of tariffs being short term, that's a fair point that the podcaster brought up. However, those tariffs can stay for a long time, and we could keep them for a long time, because today, I don't know where it is. I think it's right here. So Bank of Canada dropped the interest rate by 25 basis points because Trump actually did impose the steel and aluminum tariffs. So Canada, what we did was we retaliated with $30 billion in tariffs and retaliatory tariffs. And so the Bank of Canada is basically gearing up for a potential recession. That's what it means if they're cutting the rates right now. They're very worried that we're headed towards a recession. And honestly, that makes sense. I do understand them cutting the interest rates. And I think it's a good thing that they're cutting the interest rates. However, I do think this is a very existential moment. And Canadians are obviously going to be very focused on these tariffs, and that is going to be the benchmark issue. It's not going to be the carbon tax, Pierre. It's not going to be anything else. It's going to be Trump and the tariffs. Now, I want to show this really quickly. So this is a clip from the Liberals. It's 7 seconds long. They say, Pierre Poilievre won't stand up to Donald Trump, and Trump's friends know it. Only Mark Carney will stand strong against Donald Trump. By the way, after this, I'm going to show you guys the 3 polls that we have. So this is Ben Shapiro. For those that don't know, Ben Shapiro is a very conservative American pundit slash journalist. I guess I wouldn't even call him a journalist, to be honest with you. He's very biased. But he's a very right-wing pundit. He's super, super anti-Canadian. If you watch any of his content, he hates Canada. So that's another thing. He supports Trump on every single thing. So that's another thing about him. And this is what he says about Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney. Let's watch this.
Are you gonna get more from Canada with Pierre Poilievre as the prime minister than you're gonna get from Mark Carney? The answer is yes. Are you gonna get more from Canada with Pierre Poilievre?
So basically, he's insinuating that if Carney were to be if Pierre was to be the prime minister, Trump would be able to leverage a lot more against Pierre than he would against Carney, and that Pierre would essentially sell out Canada. And now, I don't really agree with that completely. I don't necessarily agree with that completely. I don't think Ben Shapiro knows what he's talking about in terms of Canadian politics. But, you know, when we're talking about this, and when Americans are talking about this to this extent, when they're talking about our country and our politics this much, you know it's going to be a tariff-related election. So again, just another example to show you guys why this election is so important. Now I want to show you guys this. So this is Real Albanian Pat. He maps out these poll numbers, and he did this yesterday. And so this is based on the innovative research poll that came out last week, I guess, technically. This is March 5th and March 9th, and this is with almost 2,000 people. So that's a pretty large sample. And the numbers that we were given was 41% for the Conservatives and 31% for the Liberals. So the Conservatives actually did go up by 3%. And what that translates to on the map is about 195 seats. 107 for the Liberals, 25 for the Bloc, 14 for the NDP, and then 2 for the Green. If you take a look right here, just go to specifics, the GTA, based on this poll at least, the GTA loses a lot of its support for the Liberals, or the Liberals lose a lot of their support in the GTA for that matter. And you take a look at this, it was a lot more red last time we saw this, but now we're seeing some of this blue encroaching in. And I don't know why this NDP riding is here in the GTA. I don't know which one this is exactly. But this is kind of interesting that they also have an NDP riding here. Obviously, Ottawa was very red. I think Ottawa was fully red in one of these maps that we saw the other day. So it's shocking that this is now starting to get blue again. So that's interesting to note. So this is probably the best case scenario for the Conservatives, by the way. I want to note that because 195 seats is pretty good for the Conservatives considering the climate that we're in right now. However, it gets kind of worse for them. Because we look at this one, this is a Nanos. Nanos is more credible than innovative. I want to point that out. That's not me saying that. You can look at every single pollster credibility. You guys can also take a look at 338 Canada. They rate all the pollsters. They grade them from like an A+ to an F- or whatever. And Nanos is an A+ poll. And Nanos is not a Liberal affiliated poll. I know many people want to believe that, but they're not. So that's just another pointer. But take a look at this, guys. So based on this Nanos poll, or this Nanos map, what we see right now, actually on this Nanos poll, what we see now is it was 35.7 for the Conservatives, 34.7 for the Liberals. It's weird because if you take a look at the change, so the Conservatives went up by 50 seats, even though they went down in terms of popular support. So I've been seeing that quite a bit with some of these polls where they end up going down in terms of their popular, or they end up going up in their popular support, but then they go down in terms of their seat count. So it's kind of weird. I don't know why that really happens. I think it may just be basing it on projections, like on future expectations or whatnot. I'm not 100% sure. So if there's anybody that's really good at statistics that may know why that's the case, please let me know, because this is a pretty significant change. I mean, down 30 seats is a big deal. So they went from 160 to 130, and then the Conservatives went from 119 to 169. That's about 50 seats right there. Take a look at this map right here. If we look at the GTA again, a lot more red in this one for sure. Ottawa is about the same. I want to look at Vancouver really quickly. So Vancouver, Greater Vancouver, I should say, is quite blue. And that's pretty interesting considering the fact that Vancouver was an area that, or sorry, BC was a province that did actually end up voting for the NDP in their provincial elections. So the fact that they're now voting Liberal, and I know there's a lot of stuff there with the Liberal Party in BC and how that was a whole disaster. They're kind of a joke. They disbanded essentially. But I think it's interesting to note that the NDP is typically, a lot of their support comes from BC, and they're not doing too well. A lot of it comes from BC, a lot of it comes from Windsor, that kind of area. A lot of it comes from areas that are unionized. So that's essentially where it comes from most of the time. Edmonton, so this is Edmonton, Strathcona, and then we have someone in Winnipeg as well. I don't know what this other riding is. That's NDP right here. If anybody knows, let me know. But anyways, this one is a bit worse for the Conservatives, but still a win nonetheless. I mean, a win is a win is a win. So 169 seats does guarantee that they form government. However, they do not form a majority. So that is not great for them, but still they do end up forming government. Now, this is the newest one. So this is Leisure that just released this poll. So Leisure, for some reference, last week that we covered Leisure, it was 41 to 33. Okay, so that was 41 to 33 if Mark Carney were the leader. That's the one that he's basing it on, the plus and minus change. This week, and by the way, this is different from the one that said 41 to 30, because that was a different one. That was just assuming that it was just a Liberal Party. That was excluding Mark Carney. But the true number was 41 to 33. So, based on this one now, the Liberals have gone up by 4. They've gone up by 4%. The Conservatives have dropped by 4%. So they're not tied with Mark Carney as leader. These are the first polling numbers that have come out since Mark Carney was elected as the Liberal leader. Keep in mind. So this is the newest one, actually, technically, because he was elected on the 9th. This is technically the most new poll that we have, the most accurate, I guess. You can even say Leisure is ranked an A+, I believe. If you check out 338 Canada, I think that should be correct. So this does translate quite differently onto the map, because take a look at what we have right here. So this is Real Albanian Pat. Just released it. Look what happened. Look at this. 176 seats for the Liberals, 137 for the Conservatives, 21 for the Bloc, 7 for the NDP. So the NDP basically gets wiped out. And then the Greens are at 2. Look at the GTA. Look at the GTA. The GTA is all red. All red, pretty much. And then Ottawa, they make some gains as well. Get a lot more red there. Montreal, so Quebec, they make a lot of gains there. The Bloc would basically get screwed if this poll was to translate onto the map. Also, look at the Greater Vancouver area. A lot more red than before. Hamilton, Waterloo, a lot more red here. I mean, it's very interesting. Winnipeg as well, a lot of red. Edmonton. So those that are in Alberta, Edmonton, look how much red we have going on here. Look how much red we have here. That's very interesting. And then obviously the Maritimes are red. That always happens every single time, pretty much every election. It was sort of trending towards the Conservatives, but they ended up sort of taking back control. So based on this, the Liberals would win a majority. Now, some people would be like, oh, this is fake news. These are fake polls. This is being manipulated. Look, guys, you can't only support the polls when you are winning. And I've seen a lot of people do that in the comment section. I'm not calling out everybody. I'm not. There's a select few people who comment every single time. They're like, oh, these are fake polls. They're manipulating. But I go back to look at their comments from before when the Conservatives were winning, and I was covering that. And they're like, oh, these are great polls. These are completely accurate. This reflects the sentiment of Canadians. The fact of the matter is, polling is the most accurate way to gauge a population's sentiments towards a specific candidate or party before the election occurs. And the numbers are not manipulated. Not everything is manipulated. We have an environment now where people just dismiss any sort of number that it goes against their conscience, that goes against their party, goes against their beliefs, if that number does not corroborate their views. So, look, I showed two different maps that were supporting the Conservatives that have them winning, and I have one that shows the Liberals winning. And yes, albeit some of these were a bit less than others. So, for example, this one, it kept diminishing as we went on for the Conservatives. But this is the fact. This is a fact, guys. We can't keep denying the reality. So, if you are someone who does not like these numbers, thinks that they're fake, just please take a moment to look at it again and look back at the numbers that I covered 2-3 months ago. It was ridiculous. 2-3 months ago, the Conservatives were unbeatable, and I covered that every single day. And nobody batted an eye to that. So now that it's starting to change, I can't be here and say, oh yeah, these are fake numbers. They're not fake numbers. They're real numbers. Now, moving on to something else. So this is CNN. I don't love CNN, by the way. I really don't, but it's the only American news network that I really thought of other than Fox, and their website's kind of garbage. Take a look at this. So their first headline is Canada retaliates against Trump with tariffs on U.S. imports. What are the numbers? So let's take a look at the numbers right here. So, but it risks igniting a global trade war. The European Union hit for the first time by higher U.S. tariffs, and Trump returned to the White House to retaliate within hours with countermeasures on U.S. goods exports. So he also tariffed the EU, technically, with the steel stuff. And later Wednesday, Canada announced over $20 billion in retaliatory measures as well. So that's interesting. Now, I do want to note that yesterday Doug Ford did back off his electricity surcharge. But then again, I don't know what's going to happen today with Doug Ford. This whole tariff situation is very fluid. Everything keeps changing by the hour, by the minute even, by some standards. And if we take a look, guys, it's not looking good. I mean, the markets are not looking good in the U.S. Pretty much everywhere. Like, you take a look at this, they're all covering the tariffs. This whole side is just tariffs. The U.S. markets are crashing. They're crashing. I mean, if we could take a look at Apple stock, for example. Just take a look at Apple. That's just one example, but I'll show you guys another one after this. Look at 1 month. So Apple basically plummeted. So Friday, they were at 239. Their stock was still lower than usual. They're 239, and now they're at 218. I mean, that's a big drop. That's a 7.9% drop. That's almost 8% drop. That's a big deal. Amazon, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all those guys are some good friends with Trump, at least this term. He dropped quite a bit. Jeff Bezos dropped quite a bit. They went to a low of $194 for their stock. That's about 12.71%. That's almost 13%. They went down. Tesla. This is the last one I'll show. Take a look at Tesla. I mean, this is also due to Elon Musk's shenanigans that they have dropped down quite a bit. But look at them. 25% Tesla stock has dropped. So when people say, hey, Elon Musk is worth $400 billion, not anymore, man. Not anymore. He's definitely not worth $400 billion anymore. Well, that's not good for them. So this is what I was talking about. Canada to impose 25% tariffs on $29.8 billion. Okay, so it's more than $20 billion. And U.S. goods started Thursday. So that starts tomorrow. So it'll be, I don't know what exactly, so U.S. goods. So it'll be on U.S. goods and not actually the steel and aluminum. So that's interesting. So this is $12.6 billion steel products and $3 billion in aluminum products. The counter tariffs will apply to other products, including computers, sports equipment, and cast iron goods. So if you're buying a computer, your prices will probably go up if you're buying it from Canada. So we'll see when that starts to take effect, but it'll definitely reflect in your payments for specific things, such as those things that are mentioned there. Last thing I want to talk about, actually, wait, is this the last thing? Yeah, no, two more things I want to talk about. Second last thing I want to talk about is Carney puts together a new team with Trudeau has been. This is by Brian Lilley. I'm not a huge fan of Brian Lilley. I think he's extremely biased, but nonetheless, we'll read what he said. So I do want to mention this. This is pretty crazy. Marco Mendicino, and this is me saying this from an outsider point of view. Marco Mendicino was the Minister of Public Safety. I think he was the Minister of Public Safety, correct me if I'm wrong, during the trucker convoy protests. He resigned in disgrace. Okay, Marco Mendicino was, to put it simply, he had no clue what he was doing. That's not just me saying that. That was pretty much everybody that was saying that. The media is lambasting Mark Carney for having chosen him as his chief of staff. He chose Marco Mendicino as his chief of staff. Guys, Marco Mendicino he lost his job. He was basically a backbencher at this point. His career was over. He was done. And then Mark Carney just revives it for whatever reasons. This is the stupidest political mistake, or decision, I should say, that Mark Carney has made thus far. And it's been only like 2 days since he's been the leader. So this is a big deal. I don't think anybody who is a Canadian who is watching this, especially if you're a liberal too, I think we can acknowledge that Marco Mendicino is awful. He's horrendous. Like, he does not know what he's doing. He should not be anywhere near government right now after what he did. Not just with public safety, but just in general, with every cabinet position or anything that he's touched has gone to crap. I don't know how else to put it. And you guys can look at his track record. He has just been disastrous. So Marco Mendicino is chief of staff. I don't know why he did this, to be honest with you. I don't really know what the thinking was behind it. I'm assuming he offered the position to someone else beforehand, but we'll just have to see how this plays out. So again, I'm not only critical of one side, I'm critical of both sides. Moving on. This is one good thing, though. This does offer some reprieve for what he did, but it didn't really translate to anything because Mark Carney did offer a role to former Quebec Premier Jean Charest. That's according to many sources, but Charest has no plans to become a minister. So that's interesting, to say the least. Jean Charest is a conservative, technically. And so for him to have sort of approached Jean Charest and try to make a bipartisan cabinet would have been interesting, but it's not going to happen. I think the gesture is good, but it's not going to happen. Jean Charest is a very well-respected man. You know, he did lose pretty badly against Pierre Poilievre, and many people will, actually pretty much everybody will remember that. But at the same token, he was a very solid premier. He was pretty solid as an MP when he was at the federal level. He was a minister as well, minister of sport, mind you, so not really a big deal, but he was the premier of Quebec. So he definitely is someone who has a lot of good credentials, but he's not going to run. So that'll be interesting to see. And it'll be interesting to see if Mark Carney does offer this position or any positions to other people of other parties throughout this next few months or whatever he has until he calls an election. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I do want to hear what you guys have to say because, you know, there was a lot of stuff I said here that may anger some people, that may make some people happy, but I'm not here to do that. I'm just here to show the facts. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Again, make sure to like and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see y'all in the next one.